And I had 3 good takes in me. I mean, like, after that, I could not hit the notes anymore. And thank goodness, like, the 3rd take was the keeper, because, like, I remember hitting record thinking, like, if I don't get it this time, I'm just gonna have to try again tomorrow.
Third song is The Memory of Warmth. It was demoed as Heavy. That was the working title, which it wasn't at all. It starts pretty quiet.
I can only imagine what it was like being him and listening to 5 minutes of super chill music with a name like that. The reason the demo was called Heavy was because I wrote this song backwards. You know, I'm just sitting around riffing on my guitar and came up with... Yeah, that's a riff that we could use. That needs a song. And just like the more context I gave it, the mellower it got.
It does get there. I really like the vocals on this song. I think they're done really well.
Yeah, I always just approach vocals kind of from an instrumental standpoint / dynamic standpoint. At the end of this song, I remember thinking like, all right, the end's super big. I'm definitely gonna yell. And at first I was just like, oh, yeah, this song's in D minor. I'm just gonna yell a D, like, when time ends. And like, yeah, that'd be cool. It just bolsters what's there. It doesn't really change anything. And then I thought, that's a very thrice move. And so I thought, well, I'm not gonna make it go down. I like that it starts on D. I gotta make it go up. And I was just kind of like, what just happened?
Don't even know where those came from, but he really did it.
And I had 3 good takes in me. I mean, like, after that, I could not hit the notes anymore. And thank goodness, like, the 3rd take was the keeper, because, like, I remember hitting record thinking, like, if I don't get it this time, I'm just gonna have to try again tomorrow. And thankfully it worked.
So Bo kind of brought up the idea of having me do some raspy or gritty stuff, and I'd never really done that before. So I had to develop that skill, if you want to call it that. And there were a couple of weeks where I would just jump in the car at night and drive around and around and around and just try singing along to stuff, or just experimenting with it. The second verse of this song always makes me kind of fall in love with it all over again, because after it kind of dies out in the first chorus and then it comes back with a lot more momentum and some new harmonies and vocals right away, and it musically kind of picks up, and then the lyric, the snow is picking up, and you just get this really cool visual, and you can kind of feel it. That's something I really appreciate about Bo's writing the lyrics and writing the music. He's very thoughtful about that sort of thing, and I think that really enhances both parts and just makes it a really cool thing to listen to.
Bo was complimenting me on changing the verses because they're fairly long and you kind of need some break, something different during them. And I don't really know why, because you kind of have to. If I played the same thing on the verses, it would get pretty boring. Is that the right word? Drum solo at the end is pretty crazy. Well, it's not really that crazy, but it's fun. It's like I guess it's crazy because it's a drum solo like on top of a guitar solo, which you don't do very often, but I think it works.
Oh man, it's such a free for all though. Like, I don't really listen to Dream Theater, but that's such a Dream Theater thing to do. Like, we're all just gonna solo. Yeah, the guitar solo is not particularly technical. It sounds pretty flashy if you don't play guitar. And like, yeah, there's a certain amount of practice that you have to do to be able to play something like that. But I kind of approach solos from a more dynamic standpoint. And that's why, like for this one, it's just like, it needs more energy. So my right hand's just trem picking the whole time. Which actually makes it really easy because I can just pretty much ignore what my right hand's doing and just focus on the left hand. But at the end, I wanted to transition it into the slower kind of halftime part, and I was just feeling the melody. And every part I would write, just be like, yeah, and then I'd go do a new part, yeah, and then it just ended up being way longer than I intended to. Like, I really just thought it would be 2 or 3 notes transition and ring out, but I just kept loving every few notes that came out and walked down. And sometimes you encounter these songs like Angelica by Anathema is one. Ocean Size is really good at this, like their vocal melodies. And there's something about it just continuing and continuing when you think they brought it home, and it's like they keep bringing it home. That's kind of what I tried to do with that solo, and I think it worked. Because when Jen heard it, that's pretty much exactly how she described it.
For the bass, we used my Nord, the Rhodes patch. And that's something that we used a lot on our first album. We really gravitated toward it, and we kept kind of coming back again and again to it because it's just such a cool tone. It's somewhere in between like a synth and a string bass, and it's just got a really unique, it's just its own thing that we really like. But with the Rhodes, since it is a patch and it's trying to really replicate the old analog Rhodes keyboard, there's just some kind of attack and release noises that aren't always what we're looking for. And so that's why we started relying more on this album on the synth, and especially when you start introducing pedals, which we also started using. It just didn't quite always work with the Rhodes, but I'm glad we could still use the Rhodes on tracks like this one because it worked really well for this sort of feel.
A lot of these lyrics were written in the winter of 19, and this one I remember there was a blizzard coming, and like every year seems to have like the one big storm that you know is gonna hit, you know it's gonna be windy, and you know there's gonna be a lot of snow, and this was one of those. And so I had spent some time building a snow fence out of snow at the hog barn. And on my way home, it's one of those cool days you get in the country sometimes where like it's foggy and it's dense enough that everything just looks white. The wind was totally still. And I remember thinking how peculiar it was, how still everything was outside. Like knowing what was going to come. And that's exactly where those lyrics come from, because it struck me just instantly as a metaphor for how interesting it is that life is so simple and the everyday stuff is so simple and still and calm, and yet we also know that like this great massive mystery is going to happen on all of us, which is, you know, our death. The main metaphor of the song of gathering up sticks and provisions and things like that for the winter is this idea that we sort of go through life gathering up the pieces of our worldview and trying to build them up, trying to select the right pieces that make the most sense and building us up in preparation for the winter that's coming. And just the idea of our bodies being our heavenly tent, and that it's just a dwelling for now. And that's where the metaphor from the second verse comes into play, is what happens after the winter comes.